As we humans are bombarded by information increasingly in our information world, the capability and the ability of the brain to keep its attention is extremely important. And so, as a result, attention is a fundamental brain mechanism that allows us humans to explore on certain things while we ignore other things and other type of information. But attention isn't just about focusing per se. It actually involves exploring as well. For example, if you have something, if you have a cup of tea, let's say on your desk, it's about the location of that cup, but it's also about the various feature of the cup. For example, its color and maybe the text that it holds. And so at the same time that you're focusing on that cup, you're also exploring its different features. And that's why exploration is part of the attention capacity and capability within the human brain. Now, there is a specific importance in the attention capability of the human brain in that it also not only involves the neurological reaction in terms of action potentials of different neurons, but it also entails the electrical activities of the brain. In this particular case, alpha brainwaves as well as theta brainwaves frequencies. And today we're going to talk about a paper that has explored those two brainwaves frequencies when it comes to attention as well as partly the exploration capabilities of the brain. Up until now, there hasn't been a systematic way of studying and examining how theta brainwaves support, for example, attentional exploration across different dimensions, such as space, as in location, versus feature, as in color and shape, like the example that we just talked about. This particular study, its goal was to investigate how the brain uses theta as well as alpha brainwaves oscillation to guide attention when we either, for example, want to sustain in attention at a location or a feature, or when we want to explore attention across location and features, especially when the target is uncertain. The authors of this paper used EEG devices and an attentional cueing task to track these brainwaves frequencies in real time within the subjects. A very simplified explanation of the methods of this study was that the participants were given cues indicating either a location or a feature to attend to. There were two key periods in each trial. The pre-cue to stimulus period, after the cue but before the target appeared, so that the brain prepared for its attention capabilities. And then there's also a phase where it was post-stimulus period. After the target that they needed to pay attention to appeared, the brain processed the stimulus and needed to reorient its attention towards that specific feature. Using EEG and temporal generalization, these researchers analyzed the patterns of neural activities to see when and where alpha and theta oscillations occurred. And remember, alpha are the higher brain frequencies, theta is the one that is partly lower brain frequencies in comparison to alpha waves. Some of the key overarching findings for this particular study when it was pre-cue to stimulus, it was that the alpha oscillation, which are a little bit higher frequencies, dominated when attention was sustained. If participants, for example, were cued to a location but didn't know the feature, alpha was the main rhythm, and this is the higher frequencies. This suggests that alpha supports holding attention steady at a location. So higher frequency help the participants to fix their attention at a location in particular. However, theta oscillations, which are lower frequencies, appeared when the exploration of the space appeared. So, for example, if participants were cued to a feature but had to explore different locations for the target, both alpha and theta oscillation were observed, but theta was more engaged during the exploration phase. And this indicate that theta activities, which is lower frequency, is linked specifically to spatial exploration, shifting attention between location. In other words, alpha, higher frequencies when we really need to pay attention and focus on something, but when we are going to explore something, then the frequencies lower goes into theta brainwaves rhythms. The second part of the findings of this study is post-stimulus period. In other words, when the participants saw the cue and they did what they needed, but there was also a very short amount of time after the stimulus appeared. In these cases, the theta power increased in invalid trials where attention had to reorient from a previously cued but incorrect location or feature to the actual target. This effect occurred on both spatial and feature-based attention, but it was strongest for spatial exploration. Importantly, post-stimulus theta activities also predicted behavioral performance. So, for example, higher theta activity was associated with better accuracy in redirection of the attention between these participants. Now, what do all these key findings mean in particular for this study? Essentially, at the overarching and summary level, was that the alpha oscillation equals the sustained attention when the participant really wanted to sustain their attention on the object. It helped them keep focus fixed, whether it was on a location or on a feature of that subject matter. On the other hand, the theta oscillation, which are lower frequencies, were directed towards the attentional exploration, especially when it came to the space exploration, where it helped the brain scan and reorient its attention when the target was not where it was expected to be. And so anytime the brain needed to explore something and look at different parts of the space, then the frequencies went lower in comparison to how it was before. And theta in this case played a functional role in predicting whether the participants were successfully in finding the target. In short, alpha was about holding the attention steady, whereas theta was about exploring, looking around and exploring and see what else do I need to pay attention to. What this all means and why it matters is that essentially it provides evidence that our brain uses different brainwaves frequency mechanism to different attentional strategies. It also supported a growing view that theta waves frequencies, which are the lower ones, are the clock of attentional exploration, in particular in spatial domains. And also potentially these findings could inform brain-computer interfaces and neurofeedback and attention-enhancing therapies by targeting these type of brainwaves frequencies. In other words, our brain doesn't just focus, it actually rhythmically, through its brainwaves, also explores. Alpha brainwaves frequencies keep the attention steady, whereas theta brainwaves frequency help us scan the world around us, especially when our eyes or our minds need to jump to new locations in order to explore sort of what is out there. Think of alpha brain waves as the brain's focus rhythm or focus waves. When we know exactly where or what to attend to and pay attention to, alpha brainwaves activities increases to help us maintain that focus. This applies to both locations and features. For example, for locations, when we are focusing on a cup of tea, for example, on our desk, while ignoring everything else on the desk, alpha brainwaves frequencies help us keep our attention locked on that particular spot. And when it comes to feature, when we are looking for a red pen among many pens on our desk, for example, in that case also alpha brainwaves activities help us stay tuned to the color red without getting distracted by other features like size or shapes of the pen. So essentially, alpha brainwaves act like a neutral or neural spotlight, stabilizing our attention on what is currently important to us, that prevents our mind from drifting to irrelevant stimuli and take our attention away from what it actually matters for us in that particular moment. And that is what our alpha brain waves, which are around 8 to 12 hertz, essentially appear to do in our brains. When it comes to theta brainwaves frequencies, which are lower than alpha on the other hand, they are the brain's exploration waves. In other words, they come into place when attention needs to move, especially in space. And when does this appear actually? So for example, during invalid trials, when the brain initially focuses on the wrong location or feature and must quickly shift attention to the correct target at hand. So for example, when the target feature is known, but the location is uncertain, theta brainwaves frequencies help us scan different locations efficiently. So it's like a functional significance that the theta waves have. Theta isn't just a passive marker of shifting attention. It actively predicts whether a person will successfully find the target that they're looking for. Higher theta activity means more effective spatial exploration. And so this suggests that the brain may use theta waves frequencies as a timing mechanism to rhythmically sample the environment, increasing the chance of detecting important patterns. In short, alpha waves frequencies is when we are needing to hold steady our attention, maintaining focus on a known location or a feature of a subject, whereas theta waves frequencies help us explore. It helps us shift attention across space when uncertainty arises, guiding our brain to find the target efficiently when we need to explore first before we find a target that we want. And implication for cognition and behavior of these findings is that understanding these frequencies that happens at an electrical waves level in our brains helps explain why we sometimes fail to notice things when theta is low, for example, or when we get distracted when alpha waves frequencies are low. This rhythmic interplay could underlie natural behaviors like visual scanning, multitasking, and even memory retrieval, where attention must be flexibly allocated. And when it comes to implementing these type of findings that has to do with our EEG or electrical activities of the brain, it also comes even clearer every time we do these type of studies is that it's quite interesting and potentially very beneficial to use this type of brainwaves activities also when it comes to the symbiotic intelligence that we've talked about in this channel. In that, knowing that, for example, how the brain uses these frequencies, various frequencies, to function and to be so efficient as to, in this case, paying attention to different things, paying selective attention to different information and or object around us, as well as shifting it to explore when we need to find what we are looking for, as opposed to just paying one attention towards one thing. These type of frequencies will also come in extremely handy in terms of feeding them into the potential of future of AI, in this case hypothetically AGI and ASI, because then learning from how the brain is actually using various frequency in terms of its function, in addition to neural activities, of course. It's extremely efficient and already established way as to process information and gather information and essentially react based on that information that is gathered. Okay, that's all I had for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I'll link the paper below so that you can read the whole paper if you're interested. Thanks for watching. See you next time.